Debit cards are the center focus of the South African lifestyle. Over 58% of the population has a debit card account, according to Statista, and most of the population gets around the country by using it, and oftentimes not realizing that they're losing money. We use debit cards for groceries, fuel, online shopping, prepaid services, bills, and even traveling. But what if I told you you're doing it all wrong? That by spending your hard-earned cash in this economy, you're actually not getting its value. What if I told you there was a better way to 10x the value of your cash? A better way to swipe that card and do your shopping. Don't believe me? Well, keep watching to find out more. Hello friends, welcome back to the Awareness Mode. If you're new to the channel, we talk about anything from finances, economics, human psychology, and even travel content, but especially raising awareness in these topics. I also sometimes do podcasting. You can check out the link to my podcast called The Gemini Podcast down below. In this video, we're going to be talking about a slightly controversial topic. We're going to be talking about why credit cards are a lot more better for value than debit cards for South Africans. We're also going to be comparing products, which ones to choose and why you should choose them. Now don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against debit cards. I mean, of course debit cards exist for a particular reason. I myself have several debit cards, but you'll find that I use them a lot more differently than you think. It is also very convenient for you to use a debit card if you're not a high income earner, and it's especially very useful if you're not very good at managing any sort of credit. It encourages healthy habits like saving and working on a budget. And I also acknowledge that credit isn't for everyone. Before we move on to the contents of this video, I just want to make a quick disclaimer. I'm not a financial advisor and this does not constitute financial advice, and you should definitely do your own research before taking anything on. I also want to mention that I'm not sponsored or affiliated with any entity that I mention at any point of this video. Most of these are my own observations and research. You can also check out my previous video here to see how you could save up as a student or a low income earner. Alright, let's get started. Now, I've been scouring the internet for information about credit cards in South Africa, and so far, the only things that I do find are websites about the credit card with very tedious amounts of information. I also want to mention that some of these websites have comparing tools, and those could come in handy when you don't know the difference between the services and options being offered to you. Subjects like doing your own research on credit cards and debit cards are a little too boring to read, so I oftentimes find myself wanting to watch a video from YouTube instead. Most of these videos pop up as American credit cards. When you're searching for a product, you see all of their products and their YouTubers reviewing their credit card system. And you know how much they love consumers in there, right? But you can hardly find any South African products from YouTube when you're searching. What happens if your country doesn't offer videos that talk about credit cards that are comprehensive from other people who have used them? So I decided I'm tired of this and I'm starting my own research. So here I am presenting it to you. It's obviously going to be up to you to take the stuff that I provide with a grain of salt. So it is very important for you to do your own damned research. Unacceptable! 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 Now, upon my research, I stumbled upon the fact that most South Africans don't even have 2 rands to rub together, and the thought of getting a credit card to most South Africans is actually an insane idea. Because number one, we can't afford them, and we understand that interest rates are really high on credit cards. It is a paycheck-to-paycheck country, and some of us rely mostly on government funding to just get by. So honestly, it doesn't make sense to get a traditional credit card in this case. But what shocked me even more is that that does not mean we don't take on credit. The very same South Africans actually do use a form of credit, and that is stored credit and loans. You'd actually be surprised at how much South Africans take on stored credit, especially at clothing stores like Truworths, Sports Scene, the Foschini Group, or as it's commonly known, TFG, Identity, Woolworths, Markham, but those that I mentioned are very crucial in the South African market. According to Nedbank, on average, South Africans will pay interest rates of 17% up to 29% on loans, but that's only a general number, as loan providers do personalize the interest rate based on your credit score. Consider that when you're getting a loan, it's never something small, and if you miss a payment, the interest rate is just as high as a credit card or close to, if not more, because loans are just like any other sort of credit, except you don't have a 55-day free interest period to get yourself together, and you'll be instantly charged if you miss a payment within the next month. and that compounds to a bigger interest. So this could indicate that most South Africans are either very desperate or illiterate when it comes to money. If you're a person living off on personal loans, here are a few things to know about them. Number one, with a personal loan, you're gonna have to pay off your loan every single month until your loan term is finished. This could range from anywhere between 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, and we've seen cases of up to 20 years. Number two, with loans, if you miss a payment, you're gonna have to pay the interest back the next month because there's usually no grace period given. Number three, because loans are generally bigger with their lending amount, it is very easy to be tempted into spending all of that borrowed money because you know how much you're getting. The mind is a very weird thing. You get 100K in your bank account and suddenly you're on top of the world. Number four, the longer your loan term, the more interest you have to pay. And unfortunately, in order to meet the affordability criteria, people often opt for smaller installments each month. Debit cards. If you're a debit card user, which is like literally everyone in the world, here are a few things to know about debit cards. Number one, the good thing about debit cards is you usually stay out of debt traps because you're using your own money at any given time. Number two, a lot of debit cards now offer incentives like rewards programs and points back or cashbacks that you do get, even if they're minor, but they do make all the difference. Number three, debit card teaches you discipline with money. You learn to stick to your budget, else your card will decline, which brings me to my next point. Number four, if your debit card declines, you're usually charged with a fee. If your debit account is low on funds, you're charged a fee. This is what they call a negative charge. It's almost impossible to predict how your bank will charge you with a debit account, since most South Africans opt for the cheaper version of the debit card, which is the pay-as-you-use service. It is oftentimes unpredictable and expensive, which tends to be a lot more riskier than you think. And the worst part of this is you don't even know that it's expensive. Personally, I use debit cards for transactions between other accounts, for automatic payments, which we call debit orders here in South Africa, or I use it in tandem with my credit card account for cash withdrawals, cash sends, and all of that, because obviously you're charged a fee that is hefty with a credit card if you do withdraw your money. So it's often safer to withdraw your cash using a debit card. I dare you right now, go review your debit card statement and tell me of the hidden fees that you didn't notice were there. I promise you're going to find some, especially if you have zero funds or low on funds. And while you're at it, click the like button to show that you appreciate the content that I'm doing. And please share if you care. Sub to the channel would be debit-tacular. Sub to the channel would be transactional. Now that you know about all your debit cards, personal loans, your store cards, and all the caveats that come with them, it's time to get to the crucial point of this video, which is why I made it. The credit card. Using a credit card like a debit card could often be very beneficial. What I mean by this is if you're spending money that you're already planning on spending and then pay the credit card back immediately and in full, you won't have any surprising charges. Plus, you'll enjoy the fixed rate on every single transaction. If you're a credit card user or want to be, then here are a few things you need to know. Number one, probably the most important point in this entire video. The reason why people scare you away from using credit card is because they usually don't know the facts about how to use them correctly, and they've had the worst experiences you could possibly have with a credit card. First of all, you pay a monthly fee to maintain your credit card like you do with every transactional account every single month, as you do with any other account. This will usually be an average of 60 rands per month to 120 rands per month for low to middle class income earners. The difference here being that you're obviously using the bank's money instead of your own money and promising that you will pay them back at the end of the month in full. Which brings me to the next point. The top mistake that most people with credit card accounts usually make is they leave a balance on their credit card and sometimes pay only the minimum amount. I mean, how does that work? If I borrow you 1,000 rands now, you promise that you'll pay it at a certain date. That's an agreed upon date. I'm expecting 1,000 rands then. Do not pay the minimum on the credit card account, even when given the choice to do so. Rather not use the credit card if you're going to pay the minimum. You pay it off in full every single month and do not leave a single cent outstanding as a balance, because carrying a balance on a credit card will give you debt, especially if you still have that balance after the grace period, which is usually around 55 days to 57 days. Another thing that you should know as a first-time credit card user, or if you just generally don't understand credit cards, is don't max out your credit card either, as that could hurt your credit score badly, unless you have the full amount to pay it off immediately after using it. Number two, yes, credit cards are notoriously more expensive than debit cards, but you'll also find that they're way cheaper than debit cards, because sometimes credit cards pay themselves back, sometimes in the form of memberships or loyalty rewards programs. We've seen this with FNB eBucks, Standard Bank's UCount rewards, NetBank's Greenbacks membership rewards. Try saying that 5 times. And the Beast Discovery Miles. Credit cards offer higher rewards, and you can earn cashback deals, as well as discounts, sometimes in the form of memberships. It is oftentimes way cheaper to use a credit card when you're traveling abroad or using it for flights. It's also cheaper for car hire, accommodation, and sometimes hotel, if you want to splurge on yourself a little bit. With credit cards, you usually also get free lounge visits almost every year, where you can literally eat free food while you're waiting for the next flight. Sometimes these have facilities like a shower, Wi-Fi, and some of them offer office spaces where you can work in between your flights and places to put your head down or rest. Some of these credit cards offer priority fast tracking, which means you can basically skip queues at an airport. Not to mention the travel insurance protections that come with the credit cards. They're literally encouraging you to swipe and get what you paid for, but also get something extra. The transactional fees are often a little lower on credit card accounts compared with debit cards. So if you logically think about it, the more you spend, the less you pay. Since you will have numerous options for discounts, and if you don't spend anything, and you don't get anything back for that, and you don't get charged for that. And most importantly, you don't leave a negative balance with a credit card. You just leave it and don't use it if you don't have money. Remember, you should treat it like a debit card. If all of those other perks I just mentioned now seem unnecessarily lavish to you, then here's my next point. When you use a credit card healthily, it gives you a good credit score. And you might need this in the future to get lower interest rates. So that's going to be personal loans, home loans, and car financing options as well when you're buying something using a loan. The fourth and last point that I just want to make is you're usually given a grace period or a 55-day to 57-day free interest period with credit cards before they charge you with any sort of fee or slap you with an interest. With a credit card, you also get fraud protection. This means that your bank will often intervene on the matter if there is something that did not go right on your purchase using the credit card that you own. Especially online, you buy something and it gets damaged. You can freely return it without having to pay anything back. And your bank will intervene on the matter if maybe you do an online purchase and you get scammed and you make a claim or dispute for that. Your bank will usually reimburse you for that loss after investigating, of course. This way you typically don't lose your hard-earned cash. Now, bonus points, depending on your card merchant, so either Visa, Amex, or MasterCard, you can access exclusive deals even outside of your country just for owning the card. So to close off this section, credit cards are valuable provided you pay month to month, every single month, in full. You must also know that there's usually a limit attached to your credit card of how much you can use at a given time. And the grace period allows you to recuperate before you get yourself in any sort of trouble with debt. If you obviously don't use your credit card, you don't get charged anything but the service fee every month. Card is smaller and splendid for daily use when compared to a personal loan. Alright, I think that is going to be it in this video. I will be making a part 2. In the next part of this video, we'll be comparing the different types of banks and what credit card products they offer. The big banks are NetBank, AXA, Discovery, FNB, and Standard Bank. I'll be breaking down every single bank and tier memberships. Please keep in mind that I do one upload every single month because obviously there's a lot of editing that has to go into this. With that being said, thank you so much for taking the time for watching this video. You can check out more video here. YouTube really thinks you like this one. Or here, this is my favorite playlist. Have a lovely day and see you in the next one. Bye! With very tedious amounts of information and it's interesting. Yeah, living in Johannesburg. Fraud protection? I don't think that's what fraud protection means. That's not what fraud protection means. NetBanks, Greenbacks, membership reward.